Hello everyone, Hex here. I'm still working on my next video, but I got delayed by work. And until I'm finished, I thought I should compile my old videos so that you could experience it the way it was originally intended. If you like my videos, please leave a like, share and subscribe. And thank you so much. Please enjoy. It is often thought that the evolution of the Egyptian army started with Muhammad Ali's reign. In reality, however, he relied mostly on Bedouin mercenaries and a small Turkish force as the backbone of his personal army, meanwhile trying to recruit non-Egyptians. This caused trouble in Sudan as the Turks were quickly ravaged by disease and the hot climate. But with the pool of available soldiers shrinking and all options expended, it was finally decided in 1822 to conscript the Egyptians, marking the formation of the modern Egyptian army. The goal, however, was still limited, as the first regiment of 4,000 men was meant to only replace the Turks in Sudan. Two events, however, completely altered this plan. Firstly, there was a major revolt in Hijaz, which needed to be crushed. However, since most of the army was still tied down, it was decided to send in the Egyptians. And despite being only half-trained and outnumbered, they proved to be a surprisingly effective and disciplined fighting force. Holy crap, we actually survived by just staying in formation and not running away. Secondly was a massive peasant revolt against conscription. Conscription was in fact deeply unpopular as the farmers were very attached to their families and their land. There were many unsettling manners in which they tried to avoid it. But passive and active rebellions were the most common. But this great revolt of 30,000 men was too much beyond his capacity. And thus he sent in the troops, which was itself a big risk as these men would be fighting their own friends and families, and therefore could easily mutiny and switch sides. Which did not happen. They were in fact very effective at crushing the revolt, that a soldier was given a commendation for killing his own father. Hey buddy, I got a message from the commander. It says here, congratulations on your loss, you are now a lieutenant. Get out of my sight. With a proof of loyalty and having no more excuses, Muhammad Ali decided to expand on his conscription plan, making the Egyptians the core troops of the military. And it only took him 19 years to make this decision.
The Sultan. Egypt. The Egyptians.
So far, the new Egyptian army was only used against peasant revolts. But when the Greek Revolution got out of hand, they were sent in for the first time to fight against a proper army. This was by far the biggest army Muhammad Ali had yet deployed. And leading that army would be his firstborn son, Ibrahim Pasha, who, unlike the other two sons, had survived long enough to get a portrait. Ibrahim landed in the rebel province of Moria, where most of the war operations would be conducted. The Egyptians quickly proved their worth as they defeated the Greeks in many battles and took several key cities. But despite the effectiveness of Ibrahim's army, it wasn't well received by the Ottoman court as it exposed their incompetence in conducting their own war. For starters, the Ottoman fleet and its supply chain were in shambles. Ibrahim and his father had to supply and maintain the Ottoman fleet as well as their own, as the Ottomans often docked in Alexandria instead of the much closer Anatolian harbors. When Ibrahim complained about the difficulties of supplying both fleets, the Ottoman Grand Admiral Khosrow Pasha essentially called him a housewife, which prompted Muhammad Ali to demand Khosrow's removal from command. Not because of the insult, mind you, but it just so happens that these men were mortal enemies who hated each other's guts. Another person who infuriated Ibrahim was Khosrow's protege, Rashid Pasha, Wali of Rumelia, who constantly gave silly pretexts for not doing anything, that Ibrahim had this to say about him. Sir, your son Ibrahim sent this angry message. And, well, open it, let's see what's in there. Father, I came here to fight the infidels, not the Wali of Rumelia. When the Sultan got these complaints, he decided to send observers to ensure the cooperation between the leaders, which was seen by Ibrahim as sending babysitters to punish him. Seeing that his war efforts were met with ingratitude time and time again, Muhammad Ali gave an ultimatum to stop fighting if Ibrahim was not given full independent command of his army and navy. And since he was the Sultan's biggest asset in the war, the Sultan gave in and removed Khosrow from command. At this point, as the war seemed lost to the Greeks, the great European powers decided to send a fleet to support them, leading to one of the very first humanitarian interventions ever conducted in modern history. Muhammad Ali wanted to stay in good terms with the Europeans and basically begged the Sultan not to engage, especially that he might lose his hard-built fleet and receive all the blame. I have no idea why he's worried. They are clearly bluffing, and if they are not, God is on our side. Victory is not decided by the number of ships, but by the strength of men's heart. Your Highness, the fleet sank. See, what did I tell you? It's so easy, we won. No, Your Highness, it's our fleet. Our fleet sank. The entire Egyptian Ottoman fleet was destroyed and the Egyptian army was stranded. The Sultan still did not listen to requests for peaceful negotiations, instead ordering Ibrahim to burn Moria to the ground. Finding this task to be impossible and fruitless, Ibrahim signed a withdrawal agreement and noped out of Greece. The relationship between Muhammad Ali and the Sultan was never the most stable, but this war piled grudges upon grudges, built on insolence and ingratitude. And adding insult to injury, under Khosrow's influence, the Sultan denied any compensation in material or manpower, and only granted Crete instead of Syria as originally promised. It was after this campaign that Muhammad Ali refused to work with the Sultan on any military operations or training. After the Mauryan debacle, the relationship between Muhammad Ali and the Sultan soured greatly. Muhammad Ali was insulted. His fleet sank in Navarino, and he did not get the prize he was promised. And so he would plan his revenge for the next 3 years. During that time, a lot has happened. First off, Russia invaded the Balkans and the Caucasus. Muhammad Ali was called for aid. He did not answer. Second, he began constructing a new fleet in the new arsenal of Alexandria. Third, the French planned a takeover of North Africa and invited Muhammad Ali to join in. He declined. Fourth, the Sultan had recently destroyed the Janissaries, and he requested to borrow some Egyptian officers to trade his new modern army. But the Pasha was like, "Oh, I would if I could, but you see, my officers are very expensive, and they don't want to work with the Franks anyway." Fifth, the relationship between Muhammad Ali and Abdullah Pasha Wali of Sidon also soured greatly due to Muhammad Ali's constant attempts to influence Syria. And finally, new intensified conscription waves began to occur, along with increased production rates in military arsenals. It was so intense that the Friday holiday was cancelled to meet the Pasha's deadline. Everyone was so anxious to know the reason behind all these preparations. It was really the worst kept secret, but the Sultan was still very unprepared for what happened next. Muhammad Ali complained that 6,000 tax evaders took refuge with Abdullah Pasha and demanded their return. The Sultan knew that this was yet another scheme to gain influence over Syria, and so he called off his bluff. 3 months later, after a delay caused by a cholera epidemic, an army twice the size of that in Moria began its march against Syria, supported by a brand new navy commanded by Ibrahim Pasha. Within a month, most of Palestine and Lebanon fell with no resistance, except Accra, the capital of Sidon, the same city that defeated Napoleon all those years ago, which finally fell to an assault after 6 months. It was only after Damascus fell that the Ottoman army finally showed up. Despite the Ottoman efforts to modernize, they still had to scramble to form resistance against Ibrahim, who separately defeated 2 armies in quick succession before they linked up. After receiving reinforcements, Ibrahim proceeded into Anatolia, where he was greeted by the Sultan's biggest army yet, commanded by, oh, look who we have here. It's Grand Vizier Rashid Pasha. Yes, that same Rashid. Ibrahim must have been very excited to finally get back at his rival. Rashid's army was still concentrating its forces, so Ibrahim again moved swiftly before the various armies could link up, and defeated Rashid while outnumbered 2-1 in the Battle of Konya, which was by far Ibrahim's biggest achievement. Napoleon would be so proud. And as a cherry on top, among the various POWs was the Grand Vizier himself, Rashid Pasha. After this battle, the Sultan finally sued for peace, which resulted in the Peace of Kütahya. the terms of which were unsatisfactory for all sides involved, for reasons that we might discuss at a later date. All you need to know is that it has resulted in some unfinished business that would be resolved in the Second Syrian War, but that is a story for another time. Thank you so much for watching. If you have noticed, I got a new mic. This is why I sound a bit different. And for further clarifications, all the videos I have worked on so far were supposed to be a single video, but I split them into several parts so that I could experiment with them a bit. The problem, however, is that the videos had lost their context when they were split up, and when I showed it to one of my friends, he did not understand a part of it, so I thought I should compile them now. The very first ones, however, are extremely terrible, so I will not work with them at all. I might remake them in the future, but not right now. I will focus on my next project. Thank you again, I hope you understand, and please leave a like and share and subscribe if you like my videos. And goodbye for now.